I had been sick with flu-like symptoms for about a day when I found myself lying in bed next to my sleeping husband. After dozing off, I woke up feeling feverish and decided to check my temperature using the digital thermometer beside the bed. It registered 102 degrees. Despite feeling weak due to the fever, there was a peculiar sense of relaxation, almost pleasurable. I took some Tylenol and attempted to go back to sleep. I'm not entirely sure if I managed to fall asleep again or not, but I distinctly remember suddenly realizing, rather than gradually noticing, that my fever seemed to be rising. This made me even more weak and relaxed, and I experienced an overwhelming heaviness. Even my fingers felt as if they weighed 100 pounds. Strangely, I found great satisfaction in the state of relaxation I felt, a void both emotionally and physically, without worries, pain, fear, or any positive emotions either. Surprisingly, I discovered that I enjoyed this void. However, thoughts of my husband surfaced, and I felt an urgent need not to indulge in this state too much, as I wanted to be with him and not leave him behind. At that moment, fear began to creep in, and I tried to call out to my husband, though I believed he couldn't hear me. In my mind, I started screaming louder and louder, each time increasing my panic. Finally, when I thought I screamed at the highest pitch out of sheer desperation, I faintly heard myself whispering to him. Realizing that he hadn't heard me at all, I eventually gave up attempting to make him listen to me. The next thing I remember is being enveloped in a void. I couldn't discern whether it was filled with light or darkness. All I recall is an absence of everything except for him standing about 6 feet in front of me. He remained silent for a while, as if giving me time to absorb the surroundings. When I looked at him, he appeared to be the size of an ordinary man. Given the distance between us, his height and proportion seemed normal, yet he emitted an aura of immense glory. Although he appeared my size, I instinctively wanted to look up at him, as if he were towering above me. Even though I didn't physically see anything larger than the man, I wondered why I couldn't feel his everlasting love. Unlike the experiences of others who encounter him almost immediately, the answer came to me when I questioned it. That's not what I was there for. No further explanation was given. While I comprehended this response, I couldn't help but feel disappointed, as I had anticipated feeling his love, understanding, and mercy. I felt let down, as if I had been cheated, undeserving of these emotions. However, I wasn't angry, just profoundly confused. I received no further explanations regarding my inability to feel those emotions, only that singular response. He then informed me that he was about to show me something, as if preparing me to avoid any potential shock. Instantly, I felt paralyzed but not afraid, and he presented me with countless visions, simultaneously describing this experience as akin to taking a handful of BBS and dropping them onto the floor. As the visions rushed to me as rapidly as the BBS hit the ground, I can't recall any specific visions, except for the initial one. In that vision, he stood beside me on a mountain top, and we peered down into a valley where hundreds of people scurried about, preparing for an imminent significant event. On the other side of the valley stood another mountain adorned with the luscious greenest trees I had ever seen, surpassing any earthly colors. What struck me first was the incredible understanding of my vision. Despite the valley appearing to be many miles away from the mountaintop where I stood, possibly 10 or more, I could clearly perceive every minute detail on both sides simultaneously. If someone held a note, or two individuals conversed with notes in hand, I would have been able to read them effortlessly regardless of their location within the valley. Although I don't recall specific details, I vividly remember the remarkable clarity of my sight. I faintly remember an object positioned at the center of the valley and the people moving back and forth around it, engaged in some form of preparation or interaction. The objects seemed to resemble a standard-sized car in terms of shape and dimensions, although I later learned that its measurements were similar to those of the Ark of the Covenant. However, this information fails to jog my memory. The people themselves wore attire distinct from our present-day fashion. While I cannot precisely recall the differences, I do recall that their garments seemed to be more reminiscent of biblical times, robes, sandals, and other similar elements. That was the last vision I remember. Before regaining consciousness, I found myself still in bed next to my husband. Surprisingly, my fever had intensified since the last time I checked. Despite feeling considerably weaker, I urgently needed to use the restroom. I attempted to get up, but found myself unable to move. Glancing at the alarm clock, I acknowledged the time, although I don't recall the specific hour. However, I fell asleep once more, and when I woke up less than 5 minutes later, my fever had subsided. Though still weak, I no longer felt the same level of urgency, and my ability to think clearly had returned along with the sensation of pain. I doubted the accuracy of the thermometer, so I took my temperature again, only to obtain the same reading of 104.3 degrees. After turning off the thermometer, I smoked a cigarette before finally using the restroom. Upon returning to bed, I checked my temperature once more, and it showed 102 degrees. Surprisingly, less than a minute had passed between my visits to the bathroom, during which time I had smoked most of the cigarette. Uncertain whether my experience resulted solely from the fever, or if I had actually briefly died, I am certain it was an NDE. Strangely, the next morning I had completely recovered from the flu, or whatever ailment had afflicted me. God bless you.